Hello and welcome to the LLG vlog. You're with me, Dennis Hall, LLG Bulletin Editor, and as usual, Helen Bennett's Executive Director of Policy and Governance. Great to see you, Helen, and I've missed you.
Oh,
Well,
Dennis.
I had to say that because I think I was away last week. Well, listen to this. Communities are to be handed unprecedented new powers to seize boarded shops, save derelict pubs, and block gambling and vape shops on their high street. It sounds amazing. The Prime Minister announced it himself as the Pride in Place programme, with historic funding to invest in over 330 of our most overlooked communities. The measures form the largest transfer of power from Whitehall to communities in history through the Plan for Change. Now, this raises a lot of questions. What precisely are the powers that are going to be introduced? And what is the plan? What things will local authorities be able to do? Or, on the other hand, is this just merely levelling up by another name? And what do commentators make of all of this?
Well, let's look at that announcement. It says that people will be given the power to revitalise their neglected high streets, to create new spaces for young people and take back control of derelict pubs, to essentially breathe new life into neglected communities up and down the country. I mean, if it works, this is going to be fantastic. Communities will be handed new power to see boarded up shops, save their treasured local pubs or libraries, and clean up the eyesores in their area. And, the plan is that local people will finally have the power to put things right after years of decline. And the government says it's an inheritance they're determined to fix through the Plan for Change.
Yeah, clearly this is a significant announcement.
Mm.
And goes on and says this is about choosing a future where communities are empowered to come together rather than be divided, and where renewal is chosen over decline. And this word renewal appears throughout the announcements on this. It's a big issue for Keir Starmer, who unveiled this himself, this Pride in Place programme. And it's, as I say, it's an unprecedented programme backed by record funding. That lets local people call the shots on where and how money is spent in their communities, restoring, he says, local pride and helping them reclaim their streets. For far too long, he said, communities have been dictated to rather than in control of their own destinies. And it marks a new way, he says, of governing. Now, by choosing, back to this word, renewal over decline, this government, he says, is delivering the lasting change working people will feel in the end themselves.
I think I could do with a renewal, Dennis, actually.
This all sounds, too good to be true, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, let's strive for something. We've all got high streets and areas we would like to see improved.
Ambitious.
Absolutely. So what's the Secretary of State saying? So, well, quote, he said, when people step out of their front doors, they know their communities are struggling and they see shuttered pubs, fading high streets, and their local areas in decline. And he also went on that communities have been stretched, but they haven't given up, which I think is true. I think communities are working hard to make things better, and the government wants to give them the tools and the backing to do so. So he said that the government is putting power into the hands of local people to decide how best to restore pride in their neighbourhoods, not centrally in Westminster. And then he said that's what real patriotism looks like. So I found interesting in the current climate. Building up our communities and choosing renewal. There it is again, over division. Again, there's a message there.
I think so. Now let's look at the specifics. So what mechanisms will drive the programme that he's planning? Well, first he talks, or the papers talk, of a community right to buy, handing local people the power to buy beloved assets, helping them turn around derelict pubs, create new parks and regenerate treasured spaces in the heart of their communities. And here's another, changes to compulsory purchase powers, allowing communities in England to acquire assets and eyesores like boarded up shops and derelict abandoned businesses, allowing new local startups to thrive. For larger sites like disused department stores or abandoned office blocks, we all see them, it could even see new health centres opening up or local housing to help reach the government's target of 1.5 million new homes.
Well, we talk about the government's response to the consultation on compulsory purchase orders, and there's a lot of changes happening there. So it, people should definitely listen to the podcast to pick up on that. But the government also wants to give power to block unwanted shops. So that's about empowering councils of England to say no to things like betting shops, vape stores, fake barbers, and giving residents the power. The government wants to approve spending if community groups, local organisations and social clubs, can't get my words out, only where they've been included in decisions on how money should be spent. So that the government argues that way they are putting real power into the hands of local people and giving them a proper say over the community. Let's look at some of the numbers behind all of this. So the Pride in Place programme, as you've said, that was announced by the Labour government on the 25th of September. So it's not that long since this has come out there. And it's a means to address some of the most pressing local issues with 339 of the UK's most deprived neighbourhoods. So this scheme is stated to be worth 5 billion, the fund aims to give communities the resources and tools to change themselves.
And what is novel about the fund is that residents, local businesses, civil society and community organisations will lead upon decision making, working in partnership with their respective local authority. It will be, they say, for local people who decide the projects that they think are best to rebuild and transform their neighbourhoods.
I mean, is this levelling up by another name? I think unlike the levelling up, unlike the levelling up funds, local authorities, it's intended, will be given the freedom to decide where the money will be spent, as well as extra powers to help them regenerate their high streets. Experts warn, however, that the money will need to be allocated and spent quickly to make a difference on either an economic or political level.
Yes, indeed. And Jack Shaw, the director of the think tank Groundwork Research, said this announcement makes clear that investment in the public realm and high streets is back as a political priority and on a much bigger scale than under the Conservatives. But history tells us, he says, that funding like this has been too slow to reach communities. And if ministers really want to deliver real change, they'll need to move quickly and get spades in the ground without delay.
We've heard that phrase before, spades in the ground, haven't we, in relation to...
We have.
Yeah.
By the shovel load, yes.
Yeah. Spades in the ground, not gonna do anything that quickly. Well, how is this all being received? What do we know? Well, there is widespread positive national and regional coverage of this announcement. It'd be hard to say anything negative, really, apart from, is it going to work? How's it going to pan out? Funding for areas and putting people in charge of where the money goes is a positive thing. The Mirror, it's not paper I normally look at, but the Mirror writes that the announcement is a major investment as part of the PM's backing for the UK's, quote, true patriots. Yes. I'm really fascinated by the interwoven kind of psychology of this.
Yeah, there's a lot of political tones in this, but some real stuff underneath it, as we've identified. And the piece goes on to quote the Prime Minister's speech last week announcing the funding and carries the Ministry of Local Government's Secretary of State and the Chancellor's comments as well. The paper's editorial, entitled Streets of Hope, sets out the announcement isn't just about bricks and mortar, but about bringing hope and opportunity to communities. And I think that is the key message here.
Well, The Independent covered it, takes a closer look at the programme, and it explains what it means, highlighting the fact that the money will be given to communities to spend as they see fit for their areas. The BBC News also featured an interactive map as part of its online explainer on the announcement, showing where the funding has gone. So that's interesting as well to take a look at that. But as we've said, there's been widespread regional coverage over England, with stories positively reporting on the individual funds going to their areas to invest in their communities. And many local papers welcomed funding for what they classified as their long overlooked towns.
Yes, and indeed we are familiar with these, aren't we? Only time will tell, however, whether this latest initiative will deliver real change and whether people will perceive that real change has actually occurred. And this is bound to have significant political consequences one way or another. And public opinion, Helen, as we saw from the recent Ipsos survey that we covered a couple of weeks ago, makes clear that many people doubt the ability of governments to make change happen. So, ending on this note, we will have to just wait and see.
Absolutely. Yeah.